Cyril Ramaphosa said today at the Zondo Commission he was aware of some of the corruption and dodgy appointments that happened at the State Security Agency. He says this is why he has now brought the agency under the presidency in his last reshuffle. But he says there are some good people at the State Security Agency who are there to serve South Africa, but that they must admit that it was compromised and operating under state capture. Well, to talk more about this testimony, we're joined by the former State Security Agency head. He retired only last week as Advocate Mahlodi Muofhe. Mr. Muofhe, good evening to you, sir, and thank you for your time. I do need to start with a claim made today by the evidence leader at the Commission, Advocate Paul Pretorius. He said that while you were head of the State Security Agency, you and the minister at the time, Ayanda Dodlo, played a role in stopping an investigation. The investigation was known as Operation Veza. As I understand it, it was an investigation into a unit that appeared to work essentially for former President Zuma. How do you respond to what Advocate Pretorius said today?
Good evening, Stephen, and good evening to your viewers. Yeah, it is unfortunate that Advocate Paul Pretorius SC operated from a base of misinformation. It is completely untrue that that happened. In fact, Thulani Lom came back from Japan in 2018, and he lived with the previous administration led by Loiso Jafta for almost a year until I got rid of him. So there's no ways in which I could have been party to stopping Veza for the purposes of protecting whatever Advocate Pretorius wants to avail. That's completely wrong. I think he's misinformed. And I know he knows the truth. I'm sure he's doing it for his own ends. Reality is that, Stephen, Dr. Sidney Mufamadi's report said there should be an independent forensic firm to investigate all the malfeasances at the State Security Agency. That the previous acting DG didn't execute. It's something which should be looked into. There was no point to appoint a factional unit, inexperienced. In that Veza thing, there was someone who was pointed in the Sidney Mufamadi report as a person of interest who should be investigated for malfeasance, who was part of that Veza thing. And so basically those are some of the things that I took into account. And I engaged with the team and realized that all of them had no experience whatsoever in terms of investigations. Investigations require people who are experienced. I mean, it would have made sense if perhaps we were talking about the police or Hawks, clearly qualified detectives. But that team, even the person who led it, had just joined the agency, Miss K or Miss Y, I can't even remember. But she was from NICOC as an analyst. She knew nothing about the investigations. So there's no iota of truth in what they're saying. Reality is that as the accounting officer at that time, the best thing to have done at the time would have been to ensure that there is an independent forensic firm to investigate the SSA. Not only that, where there is glaringly evidence showing that some acts of criminality have been committed by members of the organization, he should have, the former DG should have just gone to the police and report those cases. I'm on record as a person who, when I took position there are almost 6 or 7 criminal cases that I've opened with my colleagues that work there. And of a criminal offense, Stephen, whichever way you look at it. And the only people qualified to investigate that are the police and the Hawks.
Do you then want an investigation to continue? Just to be clear, you didn't stop Operation Veza for any factional reason. You would like an investigation to continue. Have I understood that correctly?
That operation had no capacity to get to any truth except suspending people for months and months, even against the policy directives of the agency. Remember, everybody, whoever you have to suspend as the DG, I mean, due process must be followed. When I got there, so many people were put on suspension for periods leading up to about 18 months. There is no procedural fairness in that, and none of them were ever brought to book, even as I left there. In reality is that a forensic firm is needed to investigate all the malfeasances there as per the Sydney Muofhe report. How do you get someone who is fingered in the report as part of VESA and hope to get any results out of it? So it also became factional. So it targeted people. You are basically saying the agency must investigate itself. You can't do that.
There was a suggestion from Pretorius, the evidence leader today, that this sort of, I mean, it's described in the media as Zuma's private army. I don't know if we can call it that, but there was certainly a group of people in the State Security Agency, the claim is, that were working for factional ends and presumably towards the interests, as it's been described, allegations rather, as it's been alleged against former President Jacob Zuma. But there's a sort of suggestion that if you look at the timeline, that this unit had weapons, and that some of those weapons could have been used in the violence last month. Do you think that's possible?
Well, I don't know about the weapons, the possibility of those weapons, whether they've been used in the violence which erupted last month. But it is common knowledge that when Thulani got there, I mean, he did as he wished. So it's not even a question of saying a private army or not. But Thulani ran as he wished. He did all the things that he wanted. He brought in many people who he took out for training and all sorts of things. I mean, that's public knowledge. So that Advocate Pretorius calls it a private army. Maybe he knows something I don't know. But the reality is that, yes, Thulani employed so many people without following due process, by the way. And that it's known.
The obvious question comes that it is now really 3 years since President Ramaphosa became president. He has said that he wants to reform public institutions. I think many people want to believe him when he says that. You were at the State Security Agency until just last week. There are big questions around whether the recommendations of the high-level panel were actually implemented. Were you able to at least start the process of reforming the State Security Agency, do you believe? Yes,
when I got there, first as the advice of the former minister, Dipuo Letsatshe-Tuva, we embarked on the process of implementing the Sydney Muofhe report. There were many recommendations there in the report. One, we started the process of de-establishing the agency. It ran for a while. And then it was taken to the ministry, and I'm not too sure when former Minister Dipuo left. But the reality is that that process is still underway. So it is being implemented. And the other thing, the report said those who have committed criminal offenses must be brought to book. As I've just told you, that by the time I left, I mean, 6 to 7 serious criminal cases have been opened at this Littleton police station, and they're being investigated by the law enforcement agencies with the mandate to do so. And to that end, there is some work being done to implement the Sydney Muofhe report.
Is there a lot more to do you believe? I mean, is there a lot more work to reform the State Security Agency? I mean, this has been a problem at least since around 2005, I would argue.
Yeah, I'm confident that the many men and women I left behind there, they are more than determined to ensure that the agency works properly. The current acting DG, Ambassador Msimang, is a man of integrity, and he's got his eye on the ball. He's not factional in his operation. He wants the agency to work well. And I think now that our president has brought the agency under his wing in the presidency, and Dr. Muofhe appointed as the National Security Advisor, I am optimistic that things will move with speed, and the agency would work properly under the guidance of the President, Dr. Muofhe, and the Acting Ambassador, Gap Musima.
Advocate Mahlodi Muofhe, sir, I do appreciate the time. Thank you. The former head of the State Security Agency retired just last week.